Hey guys, welcome back to Builds by Maz. Today I'll show you the full process for how to remove an old toilet and install a new one. Let's get started. The first step is to shut off your toilet's water supply by turning this valve here. Then empty as much water as you can out of the toilet by flushing it and holding down the lever. So there are two main parts to a toilet. You have the tank up here, and down here you have the bowl. I think it's easiest to remove them separately. First, we'll remove the lid from the tank. You can see that some water remains in the bottom, and I can't flush any more out. What you can do is take a sponge and absorb that remaining water and squeeze it out into the toilet bowl. This water has a brownish color because this toilet is so old and a bunch of rust and sediment has stained the inside of the tank. You want this dry so when you're removing it, no water will spill out onto your floor. We can then use a packet of liquid lock to solidify the water in the toilet bowl so it doesn't spill out later. It's just a powder that you pour in and let sit for a few minutes. In the meantime, we can continue removing the tank. Next, you need to remove the water supply line as well as these bolts that attach the tank to the bowl. You should be able to unscrew the supply line by hand, and it's helpful to have a towel handy because you'll likely have some water spillage. You may need a wrench to loosen up this nut before unscrewing it the rest of the way. You can also remove these from above, and here you can see the tops of the bolts at the bottom of the tank. Simply hold the nut in place from below, and then you can unscrew these bolts from inside the tank. From there, you can lift the whole tank off and set it aside. The reason I do this first is because the whole toilet is pretty heavy, so doing it in parts makes everything easier. We can now move on to the toilet bowl, and now that a few minutes have passed, you can see that all the water has solidified. First, we remove these bolt caps from either side of the toilet, and then you can unscrew the nut holding down the base. You can then rock the toilet side to side to break the wax seal and make sure it'll come free. If everything feels loose, you can pull the toilet bowl straight up and set it aside. I then use the putty knife to remove the old wax ring and clean off the toilet flange. That's this black piece attached to the floor, and yours may be white. I then recommend sticking a rag into this hole to block sewer gases and to prevent anything from falling down into the drain. I'll be installing this new Glacier Bay toilet, but the install will be the same for pretty much any toilet brand. First, we'll start with a couple of new closet bolts. You can slide the bolts into the channels on the toilet flange, and then turn them sideways so they're locked in place. Or, depending on your flange orientation, you may need to instead use these notches on the side right here. Twist down the nut to tighten them against the flange. One important thing to note is you need your flange to be sitting slightly above your finished floor. If it's not, you can buy a toilet flange extender at any hardware store, or I have one linked down below. Flip your new toilet upside down, and then we can install a new wax ring. Press it to the bottom of the toilet, just enough so that it adheres. When we flip over the toilet, the goal will be to align these holes with the closet bolts coming up from the flange. Remove the towel, and then set the toilet bowl in place. This can be a little tricky with one person, so make sure to have help if it's too heavy for you. Once you have the toilet aligned, we'll secure it to the floor using the bolts on either side right here. First we have a plastic washer, which helps prevent you from cracking the porcelain. Then there's a metal washer as well as a wing nut. The plastic washer goes down first, then the metal one, and it all gets tightened down with the wing nut. I tighten it about 80% of the way, and then install the one on the other side. From there, you can slowly tighten the nuts on either side until the toilet feels secure. You don't want to over tighten these because you can crack and damage the base. Then you can install the new bolt caps, which just press down and click into place. With the bowl finished, we can now install the new tank. First, we install this rubber gasket around the center drain hole. Then remove the wing nuts and oval washers from the bolts on either side. Then simply place the tank over the back of the toilet bowl. The two bolts will align with holes in the bowl, and you can attach them from the bottom by reinserting the washers as well as the wing nuts. Once again, you need to be careful not to over tighten these, so you don't crack the toilet, but you do want it tight enough so there's no wobble in the tank. Next, you can place the lid on top and we'll install this flushing mechanism. If your toilet tank just has a regular lever, then you won't need to do this step. But I remove this locking nut and then place it through the top of the toilet lid. You can adjust the length of these push rods by loosening the nut up top and then twisting the rod to lengthen or shorten it. This will affect how much you have to push these buttons in before the toilet will actually flush, so you can adjust it to your personal preference. Once you've got it set, you can reattach this locking nut to the bottom and then replace the toilet lid. Then you can reattach the water supply line and slowly turn your water back on. Your toilet bowl and tank should both fill up with water, and you can give it a test flush just to make sure it's working properly. This is a great time to check for any leaks. Some common areas would be between the toilet bowl and the tank, or anywhere below the base of the bowl. Lastly, check your water supply connections. You can also caulk around the bottom of the toilet bowl, but if you are going to do that, I recommend waiting at least a week, so if you do have any leaks, you'll see them. The final step is to install the toilet seat. It's pretty simple, you just put the included plastic bolts through the holes in the top, and then attach them from the bottom using locking nuts. And then you're done. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and be sure to subscribe to catch the next home improvement project. I will see you next time.